Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm Katie, a member of the CK-12 team, and my colleague Carla and I will be running today's webinar, Strategies for Using CK-12. We are so glad you've joined us and our whole team here to help answer questions. Now, many of you joining us today are participating in the CK-12 Certified Educator Program. Welcome back. If you are brand new to the Certified Educator Program and would like to learn more and officially register, you can visit ck12.org/certified. and press the register button to get started. As a note, that recently revamped program includes 4 components: 2 on-demand sessions, 3 core live webinars like this one, the matching assignments, and a final form where you can request your certificate. Since this session counts as one of the core live sessions, you'll already be a third of the way through that requirement at the end of this hour. At the end of today's webinar, we can discuss more about the Certified Educator Program for any participants with questions. Or you can type any questions in the Q&A window for Star and our team to answer privately. Now let's make sure everyone is comfortable with the Zoom webinar platform. You should see 2 different options on your Zoom screen. One is for Q&A and one is for chat. During today's presentation, whenever you have a question about CK-12, please post it in the Q&A window. This helps us track your questions, make sure that we got to all of them before we sign off, and definitely make sure we get through all the pieces and clarify anything there. The other window, that chat window, is available for you guys to have a community conversation that is up and running, so that's great. Feel free to introduce yourself, if you're an educator, what subject you teach, all the rest. Just make sure that you're choosing that all panelists and attendees. We always get some that come just to the panelists, and we'd for this session. The first is a general strategies page, and the second covers our SIMS and PLIX strategies, which are included in today's webinar as well. You can find them at the tiny URLs listed on the screen, tinyurl.com CK12 Strategies 2019 and CK12 PLIX SIMS 2019. And we'll put them in the chat window for you to use and access accordingly. Feel free to print these resource pages or keep them for the future. Today's core content is all about CK-12 and strategies for using it. Now with our FlexBook 2.0 platform, you have the tools and resources all in one place to plan and customize, deliver and differentiate, assess and remediate. With that in mind, we'll be covering strategies within each of those areas. So the first is lessons and homework. We'll talk about designing your classes and assignments using CK-12 resources as supplemental or core curriculum, ways to customize CK-12 to meet your needs, and integrating related content throughout your FlexBooks and lessons. We'll then talk about differentiation and supporting learning. We'll go into ways to differentiate and support learning at all levels using our classes, innate components of our offerings, and our literacy tools. And we'll wrap up the session with assessment and remediation, so ways you can use CK-12 to assess learning, monitor progress, and remediate when needed. Our main goal is that by the end of this session, you come away with specific and actionable strategies that you can use immediately to engage your students using CK-12 resources. Now, before we get into the core content of the webinar, it would be great if we found out a little bit more about your previous experience using CK-12 resources. So we're going to put a poll up here in a few seconds that's going to ask about your previous use of different CK-12 resources and what your plans are for the future. For this first set, feel free to click all that apply. So are you using the new 2.0 platform, just any of our FlexBooks, our interactives, practice, study guides, videos, real-world applications, or maybe you're new to CK-12 and you haven't started using this with your students yet. The second question there asks how you plan to use CK-12 in the coming months and year. I know it's a little crazy time, so just think about how you might use it to wrap up this school year, over the summer, to plan for next, and whether that's you're going to kind of use this to supplement what you're already doing, assign practice or quizzes to see progress, or even use it as your core curriculum, or share with others if you're an administrator or a teacher or that might not be using it immediately, or even a parent that's looking to see how your school can support your children in there as students. So We'll pause for just a few seconds to let you finish answering that poll. Got some good answers coming in so far. And wrap it up, and then we'll kind of close it right now, and we'll see what we got. So it looks like almost half of you guys are new to CK-12 and haven't used it with your students yet, which is a great place to start from here. And then kind of the rest of you guys have used different pieces of CK-12, whether that's our FlexBooks or practice or interactives. So hopefully we'll give you some really concrete strategies on how to use that with your students, either if you've already used it, some new ideas, or if you're starting, some great places to get started. So we can go ahead and close that poll. And let's move into the first thing, which is lessons and homework. And I'm going to pass this off to Carl to talk about that.
Thanks so much, Katie. And I want to say a special welcome to everybody today. We really appreciate you joining us to kind of figure out different ways and strategies to use CK-12. And a lot of these are for new people like yourselves that have never used CK-12. And then if you've used CK-12, but you're just looking for additional ways, I'm going to be giving you a lot of great ideas there too. I want to do a special shout out. It's amazing to me on a webinar like this to see people from Portugal, Nigeria, Tanzania, Egypt, India, Bangkok, Japan, and Vallejo, just up the street from us here. I'm in Berkeley, California today. So anyway, we really appreciate you taking some time out of your day or night, as it were, to learn a little bit more about CK-12, because my goal is by the end of this, you're going to be able to go to our website and start using stuff with your students tomorrow. So that's what we're going to try to do here. So regardless of where you're starting from, one of the easiest ways to get started with CK-12 is using our FlexBook 2.0 platform. And you're from the homepage of CK-12, ck12.org, you're going to scroll down to what do you want to teach today? And from there, you will be linked directly to the table of contents for all these subjects. So I'm going to go ahead and click on FlexBook for biology. And if I click on biology, it's going to bring up my table of contents. And this is the table of contents that you would find in a printed book. And it's a great starting point for finding the content you need. So for example, I opened up and expanded the chapter on cell biology. And maybe I'm doing membrane proteins with my students, or if I'm a parent, there's a lesson there that I can use with my kid, my child. So from there, we'll be able to do a lot of things with it. But this is one of the fastest ways to find content, is to go to the homepage, find the branch that you're interested in, and start finding lessons that are applicable. And then once you're there, you found a lesson, like in this case, it's linear equations in the distributive property, and you can go ahead and click on the Assign button. And you can assign it to a class that you've set up for CK-12 or Google Classroom. And then there's also instructions on using Schoology and Canvas and a variety of other kind of learning management systems, LMSs. But the idea is you find the content and then you assign it to your students. You'll notice in the bottom right-hand corner, it says View Practice. And this is the practice that automatically gets assigned with this lesson. And this is CK-12's secret sauce. This is our adaptive practice that figures out in a couple of questions where your student is and then starts building on the knowledge that they already have. And if you've assigned this lesson to your students, you will be given information on how the students are doing. And they'll even tell you things like how long they're spending on the assignment, what proficiency level did they arrive at. So you can use CK-12 as your core curriculum, or you can use it as a supplement. But that's up to you. If you already have a core curriculum, but you just need more digital content, CK-12 can be that too. So adaptive practice is homework. I was just talking about our adaptive practice. Here's an example of it. You can see that we have a skill level. So this student here is just beginning on this concept of adding whole numbers. And we offer ways to help the student along. So before they've answered the question, they can click on Get a Hint. And these are hints written by teachers. And the students then can get over little tiny hurdles that they might have on this concept. And then for a lot of the problems afterward, they can click on Full Step Solution. And you can see all the steps it takes to actually solve this problem. The nice thing about adaptive practice is you can assign it every day or maybe once a week. And students love completing the CK-12 adaptive practice on their phone. And maybe if they have a Chromebook and their phone, they might be answering the questions on their phone while looking at the lesson on their Chromebook. But the idea here is that we need to offer opportunities for our students to practice. And this is so much more than a worksheet because it adapts and personalizes the learning for each student. Another thing that you should take a look at are the concept pages and then the start pages in the FlexBook 2.0. And from the beginning, CK-12 has really focused on different modalities or ways of learning. So we have, if you do a search for a topic on CK-12, like motion, you will find that we offer a whole variety of things, including reads or lessons, simulations, PLIX, interactives, videos, activities, study guides written by other students. So you're going to find a wealth of information all waiting to be used by your students. And you can assign these to your students so that they can find them and then use them really nicely. In the FlexBook 2.0 platform, we offer the start page, which also helps the students actually get into the content at the appropriate level. So this is really important because you can assign this lesson and it has the information for the lesson. It has the adaptive practice. But in addition to that, it has related resources like videos and interactives and things. And if you're signed in as a teacher, for many of our lessons, you'll even see lesson plans. So you'll have a lot of information available to you through both the concept page and the FlexBook 2.0 start page. And I want to remind everybody at this point, if you have any questions, like Katie said, please use the Q&A window because that's the window that our support team is monitoring. You can use the chat window to get kind of information from other CK-12 users, but use the Q&A window, and those are going to be the questions that we're going to go pause our presentation at various times during the next hour, and we'll go ahead and answer those. So just a little reminder. Another great way to be using CK-12 right now is using our PLIX interactives. I know that so many of us are struggling to find meaningful activities for our students to do. And the PLIX stands for Play, Learn, Interact, and Explore. And that's exactly what this is about. From the very beginning, our founder, Neera Khosla, imagined a whiteboard coming alive. Imagine if our whiteboard could move. And that's where the inspiration came from for these. So it gives your students an opportunity to explore a simple concept, and usually with one or two variables. And then off to the side, there's a series of questions that helps them figure out, did I learn this correctly? So this is a learning activity. It's not an assessment activity. When you assign this to your class, they'll be given the opportunity to learn. But we don't pass back like which questions they missed and things like that, because we want the students to feel free to make mistakes, to feel free to explore. But the thing that teachers can use is the last question is always an open discussion question. And like in this case, if the train started to climb an elevation of 0 feet instead of 10 feet, how would the equation of the track change? So we've offered a different kind of application of this same concept. And a lot of these open discussion questions link through to the CK-12 Cafe discussion forum, where we have a PLIX forum, which offers the opportunity for your students to chat with other students around the world and see their thoughts on this problem. So it's a really interesting way as we are all kind of discovering how to do digital learning and distance learning. This is a great thing that you can be using that promotes writing, it promotes deep thinking, and really it promotes exploration. So you'll find that we have about 1,200 PLIX interactives on all the branches of math and science for middle school and high school. And you can go to all the PLIXs from the Explore button on the homepage. All right, another great thing that CK-12 offers are our simulations. Now, while the PLIX often take a simple concept, these simulations will take a deeper simulation, a deeper kind of scenario, and give the students an opportunity to explore it deeply. So here it says, what's the difference between temperature and heat? So, it is one of the things that we bring up with our students, and it's part of NGSS. So you can use these with your students as a brief activity, or it's something that maybe you might even spend a whole day on, because there's tons of interesting information here. So you use the guiding questions as a warm-up, as a project, and then as you jump into the simulation, you'll see that the students have the opportunity to explore and change different variables and see what happens. And then at the end, we offer slider-based questions, which allow the students to apply what they've learned to answer specific questions. And then finally, at the end, the students are given the opportunity to upload their own real-world examples of this simulation. And here's a couple of these for this one here. But once again, it's really trying to expand on the learning in a digital way. And so many of us have been challenged now thinking, how am I going to do this digitally when I used to stand in my class and I had these great activities? Well, CK-12 simulations and our PLIX interactives are really kind of cutting edge technologies that allow you to achieve these things while not being able to have them in your class. All right, finally, another great resource, another great modality that CK-12 offers are our real-world applications. And we often struggle saying that because it's a tongue twister. So we call these RWAs also. But the whole idea here is answering the question that the students often ask, which is, how am I ever going to use this concept in the real world? Where am I ever going to see it? And we have about 2,500 real-world applications, RWAs, and these really help students understand where this appears in our real world. So it engages students. We know that when they find stuff from their world, it will engage them with ideas from their lives. So these are a great thing to use as a warm-up in your class, or maybe if you've assigned a series of activities that the students are going to be doing from home. You might offer this one as one of the first ones because it's going to help ground them in that concept. And then later, as they do the real world application, they will have opportunities to model and to analyze, which are both really useful skills in delving deeper into a concept. So at this point, I want all of you to be thinking about how you're going to be using CK-12. And after a while, and you start collecting all these different lessons that match the way you do it, it might make sense to have a FlexBook that you've customized that is exactly in the right order and sequence that you need things. So the best way that I would suggest is find a CK-12 FlexBook that for the most part matches the course that you're teaching. And then in a matter of minutes, you can reorder the chapters and lessons to match what you do in your classroom. You can take out the units that you don't need. You can add in additional units from other FlexBooks or that you can create yourself. But the thing that we've seen is that you can have a customized FlexBook in less than a day. And then you can continually change it and update it. And the URL will be the same for your students to access. And you can assign lessons from your own FlexBook the same way you would if you were using a CK-12 book. And I'll mention at this time, we have a lot of webinars that cover everything that I'm talking about, including customizing your own FlexBook. So you'll want to check out our webinars page, which is simply ck12.org/webinars. And this is a great way to go find out more. All we're doing today in this strategy session is just kind of giving you a little flavor of what's out there. And then you have the opportunity to go dig deeper on the stuff that you think you can use. But the bottom line today is you find a lesson on CK-12 and you assign it to your students. And by doing this, you'll get feedback on how they did on it. All right, the other thing you can do is each lesson has additional content. And so you can curate related content that's also offered with that. So let's say you flipped your classroom and you have these great videos of you doing all these dorky like demonstrations and stuff. You can add those in as part of the lesson and embed them in the lesson, or you can simply offer them as an extra little menu of things that students can look at when they're studying this topic. So changing and curating content for the lesson is something that's optional. You can do it, or you can just choose to accept what CK-12 is offering. So, as I mentioned before, the adaptive practice is available for our math and science FlexBooks and topics and concepts. And this is the power of CK-12 available to personalize learning for all of your students. But sometimes the questions that you're going to find there might not match the types of questions you need for your specific class. So you have the ability to replace the adaptive practice that CK-12 offers with a customized quiz. And specifically, you can use CK-12 questions on your quiz, and then you can add in your own. And this is really important as we want to make sure that we aren't losing out on these kind of distance learning here. We want to make sure our students are answering exactly the types of questions they would be answering if they were sitting in my class. So we have a lot of webinars available on using our practice, customizing a quiz, and all of that. So please take a look at those if that's something that you think you might want to use too. Next up is enhancing lessons with interactives and questions. So as we're rethinking, how am I going to present this concept now distantly, through digital lessons that my students do at their homes? Maybe I might need to embed a few more videos or interactives or questions. And a lot of our lessons already have these things in it. So you might want to go searching on CK-12. And like I said, I always think it's best to start with a FlexBook 2.0 that matches your course, and then see what other kinds of embedded activities and videos, or even this thing called Inline questions, which adds students questions during the lesson. And then on top of that, you have the ability to add your own videos and presentations and other interactives into the lesson. So everything's packaged exactly in the right place. So just be thinking about what is it it's going to take to make sure your students learn the way you want them to learn. And then you can easily customize a lesson on CK-12 to match what you need. All right, another great thing that you can consider doing is you can localize lessons. So often the lesson will be about some generic place. And here we have a picture of Dustin Lynch, a graduate from a district in Tennessee, and he performed at the Grand Ole Opry. And part of the history standards in Tennessee include information about the Grand Ole Opry because it's a big part of their culture. So the people in Tennessee were able to create lessons specifically about the Grand Ole Opry. And it meant something because, for example, this is a graduate from their school district that now performs there. And they were even able to, write supporting questions and things. So it really makes it relevant to that geographic area. And you can do the same thing also. I always encourage teachers to offer to the students to say, hey, you go out and find pictures of the things that we're talking about in our textbook, and then I'll add them into our textbook. So it's student work being represented there. Or these days when the students are doing a project or doing a presentation at home, maybe the class votes and you put the best presentation video into the textbook, and it becomes part of how students learn through other students. You can even have your students create inline questions, and meaning the questions that are asked throughout the lesson, including the feedback of why that answer is correct or why that answer is not correct. And this is a great activity for students to do because it makes them not only think about the answer, but it makes them, why would somebody choose this wrong answer instead? And then what would I need to tell them so that they understand, how do you get the right answer? And that's why these inline questions on CK-12 are a real powerful tool, not just for the students who are ingesting them, but also the production of these questions too can be really exciting. All right, up next we have information about Common Core math. For those of you needing to plan around the math and Common Core or similar standards, if your state has them, as a teacher, you can find that under the Explore menu, and you'll get to this standard browser. And so you can click on Concepts, and then see that CK-12 concepts that relate to each core standard. Better yet, you can pick a FlexBook option. That will take us to our newest math FlexBook, not only that cover the content standard, but designed with the Common Core philosophy in mind. So they're full of interactive and engaging activities to help students construct knowledge. If you do use the concept correlation, you might find it useful to search for a matching concept with a FlexBook 2.0 to see the latest resources on that topic. And then up next, we have an NGSS browser available. So once again, from the homepage, click on Explore, and then go to NGSS, Next Generation Science Standards. So here, like with the Common Core standards, you will find a list of concepts on CK-12 that support that standard. And it's going to take you to the concept page where you're going to find a variety of modalities, a variety of ways of learning that concept in order to address that standard. And one of the things in NGSS that we're constantly looking for is really good phenomena, these bigger ideas that help students go here. So here's an example: why do diamonds sparkle? And so the CK-12 simulations are a great way to kind of use a digital phenomena, especially important when we're distance learning, to use a digital phenomena to kind of package a bunch of learning across different branches of study, including science and mathematics. All right, as you think about where to start and what resources are available, consider thinking about outside the box and how you might use the CK-12 platform. For example, one science teacher who also coaches lacrosse used the FlexBook platform to create a resource book with drills and fundamentals, including texts and videos to help his team learn and practice. And we've had so many people customize or create their own FlexBooks that are well beyond the scope of math and science. And these community contributed books are really valuable. And since the beginning, we've had over 200,000 users customize books on CK-12. So while our simulations cover chemistry, physics, earth and space, and physical standards, you can use various ones in other classes. So for example, the water fountain simulation can be used in a pre-calculus class when talking about parametric equations. Or at the crossroads simulation can be a starting point to discuss trade. Even better, team up with a colleague from across disciplines and create lessons that span both subject area and help the students see the relevance of one subject in another class. So this is a special plug to use Twitter. Right now, a lot of educators are out there looking for additional digital content, and Twitter is a great place to go. It helps you combat the teaching isolation that a lot of us are feeling right now. It's a great resource to find out teaching practices and also hear from leading experts in your area. Step one, of course, is go follow CK-12 Foundation. And you would type in @CK-12 Foundation, and that's the CK-12 Twitter account. click on follow, and we'd appreciate that because we share a lot of great information. But another thing you might want to do is go look at hashtag blended learning, personalized learning, OER, Go Open, 21st Century Skills, EdTech, hashtag math, SciChat, and STEM. All of these hashtags have great content being shared by teachers just like you, and even parents that are now looking for content. So go ahead, make an account on Twitter, and then begin lurking. And then hopefully at one point you'll decide, I have the opportunity to offer other things that I found. And of course, one of the first things that you should tweet is, hey, have you heard about CK-12? We offer a bunch of great content and everything's free. So it would be a great thing. I would appreciate it if you can do that, where set up that Twitter account and go share within your networks about CK-12. So finally, before we go to the question Q&A window, one of the great things to use your classroom for, CK-12 for, is to flip your classroom. So when you have students in your class, it's very easy to assign students outside of class things like watching videos or reading basic level lessons. And then once they come inside or you have a Zoom meeting with them, they'll already have enough foundational knowledge, background knowledge, which then can enable you to have a deeper discussion during your class time. Remember that our PLIX and Sims are great ways to engage students and are very good activities for the students to do before your class meets. Also, having them do some adaptive practice prior to the class helps them figure out where their gaps are and what they need to focus on. So with that, Katie, I think we have just done the first part here, and a lot of information, a lot of stuff that a lot of the new people should hopefully be getting a sense of things that they could be using CK-12 for, but also people that have been using it. It's a wonderful opportunity to see some new things that maybe you haven't done before. So let's go take a couple questions here, and then we'll continue with some more strategies on using CK-12.
Yeah, thanks, Carl. That was great. There's definitely a lot being covered here. Just remember, you don't have to do any of this to start. You can just start with one little thing. These are just extra ideas that might be useful. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by all the things you can do, just pick one or two to try out and start from there. And I'm actually going to stay on the slide for just a second, because one of the first questions we have is someone was having difficulty finding FlexBook 2.0. And right at the top of that screen right there, it says Explore. It says CK-12 Dashboard, Classes, Library, Subjects, Explore. If you click on Explore, you can explore our new FlexBook 2.0 platform, or the full range of FlexBooks that we have. And you can get there by just going to ck12.org. So you don't have to kind of worry about finding. I love our new Explore menu because it just gives you a quick access point to everything. So go ahead and check that out. And then we have some questions. I know we're going to talk about accessibility kind of later on as well, but we do have some specific questions that I thought we could kind of reference right off the bat. Asking about text-to-speech or word-to-text. I know a lot of schools that use Chromebooks or Chrome browsers use inherent built-in text-to-speech options, so those are all available there. So you can go ahead and do that. And those have been pretty successful for having kids kind of read it out as they're trying to work their way through. So there's the Explore menu, which is great. And then you can kind of embed those different pieces. And then there's a question about having the site be more user-friendly by providing options for adjusting the font size. So if it's just the regular site, you can just hit like Command+ and zoom in on the website, and that'll get you kind of from there. But on the actual FlexBook, so if Carl goes kind of back into and picks any FlexBook, under the toolbar within a FlexBook lesson, so if he opens a lesson there and clicks Start, you'll see options to actually change the display. So toolbar, and then down at the bottom it says Display Settings. And you can pick size, you can pick coloring and background and font, and sort of all those different pieces are available there to make it user-friendly for you. And then kind of thinking about accessibility as well, this is one of our books. Any custom books, you'll actually see the option to download to PDF if you've customized a book. And any of our quiz and practice, there's a download worksheet option. So for those of you guys that need access offline, especially at this time where kids are in and out of school and in and out of access, those are available there. So some kind of just preview pieces there. I know we're going to talk about more. Carl, we have one question here that says, can you give an example of how the PLIX would work as a think, pair, share, or how students might work together with a virtual class? So I know you talked a bit about strategies with that. Maybe you want to take that one.
Sure. So let's go back to the CK-12 homepage. And I always think the easiest way to do that is by clicking in the upper left-hand corner, click on the CK-12 logo, and that'll bring you back to the homepage. And then the question was about the PLIX interactives. So I always like going to my Explore menu. And then you can see PLIX is one of those options there. And then here you can see we have all the different PLIX, and I'm actually kind of zoomed in a lot here, but this is where you have, different PLIX. So an example of think, pair, share that you might want to encourage your students to do is you might want to go ahead and have them on like ahead of time saying you break them up into different groups and say, okay, Sarah, you're working with Bobby, and they can communicate on their own, whether that's through a phone call or whether that's, whatever medium they want to use, a Google Hangout, and they can go talk about this one and come up with an answer. And really specifically, I think one of the things that I would have them do in a think, pair, share is not only agree on what the answers are to these questions, and I'm not going to get any of these right, unfortunately, because I'm not reading it, but once you get down to the last question, you're going to see there's that open discussion question that I talked about. And this is where I think you could really have the think, pair, share could be the two students could discuss it and then maybe send an email in, or you could decide how they're going to turn that into you. But to have them do that, or maybe you're going to have them post in the Q&A area of your class on CK-12. And there's a lot of different ways to do this, but then they can share their ideas there and also see everyone else's ideas. So that's one way that I would use the PLIX to help promote the idea of learning and think, pair, share.
Great. So let's take maybe one last question that's in here. It asks about suggested timeframes. Our newer 2.0 lessons in the details information under that same toolbar where you saw display settings, there's a details option there. Some of those have suggested time. Most of the lessons are set to be about kind of geared towards one class period to give you a sense. I know a lot of teachers that I've spoken with have been successful by assigning less and encouraging kids to kind of work their way through. Schools that have gone, go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah. I was going to say, we were on a panel the other day for EdSurge, and one of the people that was working on the panel shared something really useful, and I really has stuck with me, which is when planning on things digitally, take the lesson that you planned, cut it in half, and then cut it in half again. And that's what you should try to get done. And I think that's really important that, we can't expect to cover things the same way when we're distance learning. So really kind of try to get it down to the basics of what you're offering. And I wanted to show you in a lot of our FlexBook 2.0 books, you're going to see other versions. So like in this case, there's a teacher edition book, and you can come in here and it's going to give you, the math team has done some amazing things here, including like how long they think different activities are going to take and what the pace of the lesson is here. You can see the Common Core standards. There's a wealth of information available in the teacher's edition. So make sure that you check out to see if not all our books have teacher's editions yet, but we're trying our hardest to get you all that great information.
Great. Thanks, Carl. I think with that, I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going to move on to more of those questions on differentiation and learning, and I will pass it back to you.
Sure. All right, so with the differentiated learning, we can use CK-12 to create little mini classes, and then I can assign different assignments to different groups. I don't have to just assign everything to all my students. I can have different little groups which get different things. And then, we improve learning and literacy by having our students, do things like highlighting, and they're annotating in the margins and stuff. And there's some really good tools on CK-12 to help us do this. So let's talk first about differentiated classes. So one thing you can do is you can go to classes on CK-12 and then create the purple group. And maybe this is my group of English language learners who don't have a lot of academic English, so they might need some other tools, some scaffolding that I set up for them specifically. Maybe I'll have them watch an instructional video first to help build some of the vocabulary. So, and then I might have my green group, which is my advanced group, and they're going to do some extension activities because they've already got the basics covered. So the nice thing is, because it's all digital, the students, there's no stigma with being, in the group that struggles or whatever. They're just all in some group and they're all just doing an assignment, and that's the end of it. And like I said, you can still assign an assignment to the whole class if you want to. So another strategy that I want to share with you is adaptive practices, challenge and support, because we know that it's really important that students learn at the appropriate level. And the CK-12 adaptive practice does exactly this. And we offer content also when the student is struggling to fill in gaps that they have. Finally, then there's reports that help the student and the teacher understand where the student is. And the nice thing about the adaptive practice is when you're looking at a FlexBook 2.0 lesson and you assign that lesson, the adaptive practice is assigned at the same time. So it's kind of packaged together. But definitely you should be using adaptive practice because it will make your life easier and really give you some great feedback on what your students are learning. I had mentioned the inline classes earlier, but I want to really point them out. And these are the questions that appear inside the lessons in some of our lessons. And what they do, as you can see here in the example, in section, the first answer, A, is wrong. And it says, try again. You did not divide the price by the number of rolls to get the unit price. So we're giving them direct feedback to get over a mini hurdle so that they can continue with their learning. And especially now when you're not in the same room as them, these inline questions are a great way to help them move forward and progress. It gives them the instant feedback they need, and then you can create inline questions yourselves and paste them in the middle of a lesson, either a CK-12 lesson or with content that you already have. But it's a great way to help them get through difficult ideas. And then, as I mentioned earlier, you might want to have some of your advanced students actually create the inline questions and then think about what would be the feedback that students answering this question would want to see. So these are real powerful learning tools available to you, when you have time to do this. I know that a lot of this, might seem like it's once you get used to the system and once you have a little bit more time. And I know that so many of us are barely managing to get content for our students right now. And I appreciate that. But when you have some moments, definitely inline questions are a great way to go.
And Carl, some of our material already has them built in. So if you're interested, I know our middle school math does, I know some of our science team are working on that. So you may not have to do this, you may just be able to find it as well, depending on your topic.
Yes. All right, up next with simulations for challenging and supporting. Challenge students with questions and by turning off the graphs. And I think if we advance here, you'll see that. And teacher walkthrough, we have tutorial videos. And we have links to the concept pages on CK-12 which support this simulation and even more detail icons. And it helps you get started using these deeper thinking activities and support learning. Also, we have electronic and PDF companion worksheets, which will help the students by scaffolding the sim for them. We also offer the opportunity to have the simulation translated into a variety of other languages. So you'll want to make sure that you can help your second language learners there. And then they can create new questions where they can write their own slider questions or situations, which you will use the simulation then to answer the questions. And this is a great way to get the students involved. Also, to dispel misconceptions. So we have a list here, for example, of a common science misconception, and then which is the simulation on CK-12, which will help the students understand why something is a misconception. So please take a look at our simulations, and it can cover all the different branches of science here. All right, as I mentioned, the PLIX Interactives are a great learning resource. We offer hints, and then we check the answers while they're doing the challenge questions so that they understand what they're doing and where they still don't understand. In addition to that, we have links to the concept pages if they want to learn more about this. And this is a great opportunity to explore the interactive and then discuss it with others using those great open discussion questions. All right, up next we have a teacher who uses CK-12 to, they use the highlighting feature on CK-12 to help her students process academic texts.
A student has more than one learning modality, learns through multiple modalities. A feature that CK-12 provides is the highlighting with different colors. So I'm able to not only emphasize a key point, but I'm able to assign it to a specific color that can also trigger maybe another memory for them.
So you can see here, the students or anyone, teacher or students, can highlight in the textbook and in their FlexBook. And then when they go into the toolbar and click on notes and highlights, all of their highlights are in one place. So like Anna, I've talked to Anna before, and she talks about how when she's having the students review for a quiz, they go directly to this notes and highlights page in order to kind of review for the quiz. And remember, the highlighting and the annotation is in the student's book. It's not shared with the teachers, just like it wouldn't be if it was a real highlighter. But it's just simply, it's a tool that students use to learn academic text processing. So, you know, we call this talking to the text by interacting with the text that way. And then the summaries can be really, really useful. One of the big things that people often don't come across right away, and then when they see it, they're like, wow, is at the bottom of our lessons, you're going to see the ability to translate into the Google languages using the Google Instant Translate feature. So you can be on a lesson in CK-12 and you can choose Spanish, and the whole page will translate to Spanish. And this is great for our second language learners. I've even seen it where the student might translate the book into Spanish on their phone while looking at the Chromebook in academic English. So there's a really great opportunity here to help build academic language in the home language, but also in academic English. One of the ways that you can involve parents to use CK-12 is by sending links to our concept pages. You can say, okay, this week, here are the concepts that we're covering. And that way the parent, when they have a moment, might want to go watch a video and remember how to do binomial multiplication. And they can familiarize themselves. The nice thing about a FlexBook and sharing the FlexBook with a parent is that it's a familiar format. It's a textbook. And so there's chapters and lessons, and they understand what that is. I always talk about how my son had a lot of teachers who didn't use textbooks. They just used folders on their Google Drive, and it was all password protected. And as a parent, I couldn't see any of the materials. So the nice thing about CK-12 is all our content has a link, has an actual URL. And then once the parent opens it, they can choose to translate it into their home language if it's something other than English. All right, and we have another video here. Yeah, we spoke to Cynthia Ontiveros, who's a principal in the El Paso Independent School District, about the power of CK-12's Translate feature.
I met a parent who was struggling with supporting his daughter because he did not speak English very well. So I brought up the CK-12 on my iPad. I quickly showed him how he can change the language, and he was nearly in tears, and he felt just so excited that now that he could help his daughter, which was emotional for me too, knowing that this is what CK-12 is about. This is what we want our parents, our language learners, no matter where they come from, no matter what language they speak, they need to find a place in our classroom, and CK-12 helps us to do that.
So Carl, let's take maybe 1 or 2 questions. Our team has answered over 300 already today. So
Wow.
Thanks for all of the support that we've gotten so far. So we're gonna do 1 or 2 quick ones now and then kind of do the last portion of our webinar so that anyone that needs to bounce at the hour can do so. But one asked about a code for related content within CK-12. And that related content, you can either find that by just searching on our site and then filtering by the type of content you want, or in that new 2.0 platform, you don't need a separate code to access that. You just click on the toolbar at the top and you'll be able to access all of the related content there. And then I'm gonna let you take this one, Carl, and then we'll kind of move back from this point. So the question is, how can you use your resources in real classrooms, not just online?
Great. Yeah, there's so many different ways. You know, and I think most of us are kind of approaching this from the idea that we are in the classroom with our students and that these are just unique times right now. But there are a lot of different ways to use CK-12 in the classroom. You know, I've seen every different way, including teachers projecting CK-12 lessons in the front or CK-12 interactives right there, and they're doing them as a class or taking the simulation, having the students do the first part individually, and then in the exploration part, everyone comes together and the students take turns coming up. So there's just so many ways you can implement CK-12. The biggest way for you to be thinking about is creating a FlexBook for your course that is a really good source of core curriculum. It happens to be digital. It happens to have the power and the intelligence of a digital product, but it still is the core curriculum. Or if your district gives you a core curriculum like CPM or Engage New York, you can create a supplement to that, which is another support to what your students can access to learn the material. So, all right, Katie, I think we should probably move on. Just be mindful of time. And we promise to stay around and we're going to answer all your remaining questions after once the webinar finishes so that you have a chance to make sure you get your question answered.
That's right. So we're going to move on to assessment, progress, and remediation.
All right, in this area, we're going to learn about learning versus assessment. A lot of what's on CK-12 is about learning. It's not about assessment, but you can use it for assessment. And then we'll see some ideas on progress and remediation on how to make sure all your students are making progress and getting the help they need to make that progress. All right, so as I talked about here, things like our simulations and our PLIX and our inline questions are all ways of learning, okay? These are not assessment moments where we'd say, okay, this student is proficient. So we want you to think about it from this perspective, that we're simply giving activities where the student can learn. All right, one of the great things you can use CK-12's quiz feature for is to create pre and post tests. And we know these are great opportunities to assess starting knowledge and then show growth over time. And you can use the same test or you can modify it slightly. And this is all really simple to do using our edit quiz function. All right, and then the next one is quizzes on CK-12. The idea here is that you can use a quiz instead of the adaptive practice here. And you can customize the existing practice, or you can pull in a quiz that you've already made. While this removes the practice that CK-12 had with it, it automatically adapts to the student's performance, the CK-12 does. And in this way, you can tailor your lessons with your own assignments. One new feature that we add is the students can now pause a quiz, and this is really useful because they don't always finish, during the allotted time. So they have the ability now to pause. Like let's say they're, when they're at home, they're being asked by a parent to go do something and they don't want to lose their work. So we're really happy. This was a feature that a lot of people asked for, and we finally got it up and running. So we're really happy about that. CK-12 reports not only show completion for learning modalities and scores towards a correct goal of 10 for practice and a percentage correct for quizzes. They give you access to the same report students see for practice and quizzes. So what you can see here is you can see a heat map, which lets me know how all my students are doing. But if I click on any one of the scores, I can see exactly what that student responded. And I can see which questions they missed and how many hard ones they did, etc. So we offer a real deep level of information about the student progress. All right, insights are kind of one of the most exciting things that we've been working on recently, is it's showing you more information about the student experience. So you'll notice here at the top, it says time spent on lesson. It tells you which skill level they arrived at. And then really exciting, for each student, it shows you where did they spend the time on the lesson. Okay, you'll be able to see, did they watch the video? Did they do the interactive? Did they go and answer the inline questions? So that's the type of feedback we think is really useful to you. All right, and then remediation through recommendations. CK-12, based on what they're seeing in the answers that they're answering in the adaptive practice, the students can be guided to a part of the text which maybe they need to go work on more. So here you can see that it's a flashing green light off to the left, and it's gonna mean that, you know, this is the recommended paragraph. This is what's gonna help you answer this question here. So we recommend reviewing this paragraph based on the questions that you missed. So this is super powerful. And this is what we talk about, you know, the artificial intelligence and the machine learning behind the CK-12 platform really make it a rich learning experience for your students, but also insightful for you.
Great. Thanks, Carl. I'm going to give you guys the next few minutes to put in some extra questions at the end, go through some logistics, and then as Carl said, we will stay on and answer any of these questions either via text with our team that's doing an amazing job, and Carl and I will answer some of them live as well. So let me wrap up a little bit of logistics. So we are starting our May series for the Certified Educator program. So we're starting kind of over again with our FlexBook 2.0 platform. So for those of you guys that were asking, I don't know where any of this stuff is, how to find it, that's a great webinar to come join us for. We are switching in May to 10 a.m. Pacific time on Wednesdays. So 3 weeks in a row, we'll do FlexBooks, customizing, and then this one again the following Wednesday. So you can register on our webinars page for that. I know a couple people said they had a glitch when they registered. We'll get that fixed quickly, and then you should be all set to go. So make sure you're getting your confirmation emails or reach out to us. Those webinars and today's webinar count towards the Certified Educator program. So some of you guys, I think, are wrapping up if you've been joining us since the beginning of April. Some of you might have just started, and then you can just take the next two in May. Totally fine, but go ahead and register at ck12.org/certified if you want more information and access to that class and all the rest. We believe in adjusting and learning and moving just like you guys do and your students do, so feel free to give us feedback. CK-12 feedback 1920 is the tiny URL, and we'd love to hear how we did today, how we can improve for the next round when we do this in a few more weeks, and we'll go from there. So I'm going to say thank you for joining us today. If you have questions, you can email us at Jumpstart. Please feel free to post on social media, hashtag CK12 certified if you're in that program, or just at CK12 Foundation. But we will stay on, as we said, and go through any questions and answer them via text and demos or verbally as we go. But if you have no questions, thank you for joining us for this last hour. And if you do, go ahead and put them in now. It's better to kind of have them all and we can work our way through and get out of here as you guys get your questions answered. So Carl, where do we stand on questions?
You know, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen as the first thing here because we're going to start there. All right. So I just want to, there's a couple things for those of you still on that I think are really important. We've already mentioned a couple times from the homepage. you've got the Explore button right here, which gives you direct access to a variety of things. And you might want to just take some time and go exploring on your own after the webinar's over. But definitely, this is a great opportunity to find other schools in your area that are using CK-12 and have shared FlexBooks that they've made. Some great study guides, the cafe discussion forum. There's so much here. We've only begun to kind of talk about some of these things. But as you know, really important are the FlexBook 2.0 and then our adaptive practice and simulations. Finally, as Katie just mentioned, today's webinar is part of our Certified Educator series of webinars. And if you'd like more information about that, go click there. Finally, the webinars. And this is where, and I'm going to actually go there, you're going to be able to find out exactly what's coming up, what are the different dates so that you can put them on your calendar now. And then you can also watch previously recorded ones. And we've got them all archived right here. So here's today's, for example, already recorded at the beginning of the month. And you can see, but that one, since you've already seen it, it's probably not good. Here's our one that we've been doing for school closure, a really good one, the FlexBook 2.0 platform. So please take some time out and go exploring on this page, and you're gonna find that there's a lot of great things here. All right, there was a question here, does CK-12 support a RenWeb for importing grades? Unfortunately, at this time we don't, but feel free to send us an email at support@ck12.org and let us know exactly what your needs are. And then maybe at one point when we have enough people asking for it, we can consider. How can I link CK-12 assignments to Google Classroom? That's a really good question, and we make it really easy. So I'm just going to quickly go into a book that I have, and let's see here, FlexBook right there, physical science. And let's say I've chosen one of these lessons about hydrocarbon, and I'm on that lesson. And when I click on the Assign button at the top, I have two options. I can assign it to a class on CK-12, but I can also assign it to Google Classroom. And it'll ask me to connect to Google Classroom and sign in, and all of my classes from Google Classroom will be here. So that's the way you connect to an assignment to Google Classroom. All right, Katie, do you have any?
Sure. Yeah, I got a couple here. So we had a question about kind of seeing skill level pieces. If you get to insights, so if you're on one right there, under that toolbar, do you see insights there or not? Because it hasn't been assigned yet. So right at the top is insights. And if you have insights there and you clicked on insights, for any class that had work, you would actually see the students right there. And I don't think we've assigned this particular lesson to any classes. So you're not going to see it yet. But right underneath there, you would see where all these gray things are. You would see the color coding based on skill level. And that would give you kind of a sense of, even if students all turned in their work and got 100% in the report, which students might be struggling a bit more. So that's one piece to kind of keep in mind. We also have questions about kind of seeing how students are doing as a class. We are continuing to roll out new insight features. You know, at first it was just the time and the, grade, and then now there's the paragraph mapping and the map on the side on where students are, and we'll continue to launch more and more pieces, including class level insights. So that's one of the biggest reasons I would recommend working in 2.0. So hopefully that will help you there.
And I'll mention that ties into another question that I see here, Katie, that, is there a way to see a student summary? Right now, we show you kind of the questions that they answered, but our team is working really hard as we speak to be able to offer you some summary of, like, in general, what's something the whole class hasn't understood. And so that's the types of insights that you're going to see improvements to the insights over the next few months and throughout the summer. And we're really excited about this because we think this is the type of information that teachers are needing when they're teaching their classes. So you're going to constantly see improvements on summaries for individual students, but also the class.
Carl, maybe you could go to a class. We have a couple people asking how they can see it. So in our winter 2020 class, so one thing is, if you can't create different groups within a class, but you can create additional classes for group A, group B, whatever you want. So the main class would have the core assignments, and an additional group might be able to have other pieces there. So that's how you would create different groups, not within a class, but outside. And then for the insights, so the reports are right here, and you can see all the detailed pieces. To get to the insights, you actually want to click on the assignment. So if we go back to that class page and click on assignments, and then this is the same if you were in Canvas, Schoology, or Google Classroom. And I think in March, we might have some data as well that would show you those pieces. So I think the February and March ones have 2.0 lessons. So there's a 2.0 lesson with practice at the top or with a quiz. And if we click on that lesson and open it just like a student would open it from whatever platform you're in, now you'd actually be able to see insights from there. So when Carl clicks on that, he can go to that winner class that we were just in. There we go. And you'll see a couple different students, and it looks like there's some variations in green based on how they did here. And you can see on the left side right there, if he scrolls down, kind of where the student actually spent their time on that particular lesson. So hopefully that answers that piece there.
Good. Sorry, and let's see, another question here. Let's see.
Question about study guides. So maybe
Sure.
you could show them where that is under Explore.
Sure. So here is the CK-12 homepage, and as I mentioned, the Explore button here, and then study guides are down here. And these are really amazing. These were made by high school and college students on a variety of topics, and it's like all the information that the student needs all in one place. And the really cool thing is you could even have them printed out, and if they still have a binder, you can have them do that there. But it's a really good at a glance on this concept sheet. We've done that one now.
And we have one that I flagged because it's about Google Classroom versus CK-12. So if you are using Google Classroom, if you're using Canvas, if you're using Schoology, one of our integrated learning management systems, you're not going to want to create a class in CK-12. You're just going to want to create a class there. And then you can assign out to there or from within those platforms. It's not that if you put the same students in both places, you'll see their grades in both places. You actually need to stick with one of them and assign there and have students do it there, and then their grades will all show up there. So just kind of keep that in mind, that wherever you post those assignments and wherever students, it should be where students access and turn them in, and then you will see the reports there directly.
All right, there's a question here about CK-12 apps, like on the Play Store or Google Play. So, but the idea is that the best experience for CK-12, we've made it really easy. On any device in the world that has a browser, simply type in ck12.org and you will have an optimized experience for that device with no app install needed. We used to have some apps, and what we realized is we can offer everything through the browser, which just makes it simpler for everybody. There was also a question about Blackboard here, and and it's a different LMS, a learning management system. What you can do with Blackboard, while we don't have like the same type of integration that we do with Google Classroom, you can always offer links to anything. So if you're on a PLIX or you're on a lesson in a FlexBook, that's going to have a URL here at the top. And once you're in that URL, you can copy that and you can paste it. So for example, right here, I can copy this and I can paste it into any LMS. But the only thing that won't happen is it won't be passing the grades back from different assignments on CK-12. You have to, for Blackboard, we can't offer the pass back on that.
Carl, we have a couple questions on coloring and how that all works. Can you click back to that classes tab? And let's see if we can show, I think it's still open on your window as one of the extra tabs. So, and if we get reports, so here we have insights, that's fine.
Yeah, I can go to the reports.
Yeah, so there's a couple different colors on reports. Here's the thing, for practice, most students have green on a heat map on a report because most students work their way through until they get 10 correct and they get that 100%. That is the completion percentage that you're working off of. The different coloring that you see to the left there is the coloring for a quiz, which is a true percentage score. So there you're going to see mostly green for practice and a variety of colors for quizzes. That same variety of colors would show up under insight. So actually, if we go back to the class for a second and pick the 2.0 with practice, that very first assignment up there, and open it. And this is how you would open it from the same way you'd open it within Google Classroom. You'd access that assignment from within there. And now if we click on Insights here and go back to that winter 2020 class, so when you're in CK-12, you actually have to pick your class. And here you'll see, it looks like most students haven't turned it in or they've done a little bit, but you might see some more variety in color here because that is actually based on the skill level. So that's a quick way to overview and get a sense of, okay, all my kids did it. They all get the 100% in their grade report, but which students need a little more practice and a little bit more to work off of there.
Wow. And can I just shout out to the support team that is still answering questions and doing great. 450 questions answered during the last hour. Their fingers have been flying. So special thank you to all of them to answer your questions. There's a really interesting question here. How can I use CK-12 with my students with autism? You know, it's interesting. We get a lot of special ed questions. And, you know, the nice thing, because things are customizable with CK-12, you can adapt anything for whatever the special needs are, whether it's vision or whether it's, you know, anything that they need, you can change it to give the students exactly what's specified in their IEP. So, you know, whether it's autism or anything else, you know, all of the nice thing about CK-12 is you can click customize, and imagine you can even have, you know, work with the special ed teachers and be able to customize the content and even maybe put together really quickly a specialized version of the FlexBook just for them and their special needs. So please, you know, for me, special ed is a really great thing to implement using CK-12 because there's so many options and choices available.
We have a bunch of Google Classroom questions. I have it pulled up. Do you want to pull it up or do you want me to swap
No, if you've got it pulled up, I'm going to stop sharing and I'll give it to you.
I will take this over. Okay. So we have a bunch of questions with Google Classroom. So the first thing is that if you go here to CK-12 and you want to assign something, let's say I pick a section from an earth science book, and I can assign multiple sections or an individual section. So let's just pick assign. And now I pick CK-12 or Google Classroom. It's a little different for Canvas or Schoology because you do it within those platforms. But if I pick Google Classroom, I'm going to connect to Google Classroom. And then it will show me the classes that I have within Google Classroom. So let's go ahead and pick this spring 2020 class. If I'm doing it this way, I can pick a couple different units. So let's say I'm going to pick location. And for 2.0 lessons, I can set a future date for it to post, or I can have it post today. And then I do have to pick an assignment date. So let's say this is due on Friday, and I can assign this to my class. So in this case, I can now go into class, and in that Google Classroom over here, once it says it's been assigned, I can open up Spring 2020, and I just posted a brand new assignment on location there. So that's available here. Students will see how this is working and what's happening from that point. I'm going to go ahead and pick a different class that has work done in it already, so you can see a little bit more for classwork. So let's say I have this one on physical properties of matter. If I open this link just like my student would open it and they'd see it from there, we will pull the class information from Google Classroom into this lesson for 2.0 lessons, and then I can open that using the same toolbar that we've been showing you right here, and I can say Insights, and now I'll see the insights for Lindsay and Katie and Ryan as they work their way through. And you can kind of go from there. So that's how you pull the insights up. To pull the class report up for Google, you do need to pick the report for a particular thing that has practice attached to it. But so because this has practice attached to it, underneath all of these, you'll see these little links that kind of look like the CK-12 homepage before you sign in, and I can pick any one of them. And that will open up the matching kind of shadow class report from Google Classroom. So I didn't create a new class in CK-12. I just pulled it from Google Classroom. And then here I can see the same report that you would see if you were using a class from that piece. So you're going to want to pull from the grades, click on this link to open the class report, or from an actual lesson, and then you can open up the full lesson and see insights in Google Classroom.
Great. And the other thing, there's another question here remaining about if you can use these differentiation and group tools if you're using something other than CK-12, like an LMS. And, it really depends on which LMS you're using. For example, you can create an assignment in CK-12 through, our CK-12 interface to Google Classroom. And then once you're in Google Classroom, you can select exactly who's going to see that. And that's a feature of Google Classroom that allows you to do that. So here you go. Katie's showing you now that you can see all students, or you can click on specific students. So, whether you're using Canvas or Schoology, it really depends which one. And, go look in our help desk or contact our support, and we'll be glad to help you with those kind of things. And Katie, I think we have done it. It's pretty amazing, all the excitement that's out there and all these people learning about this. I think, the idea here is that, we're here to help you. Go try some of this now and really figure out what's going to happen. A recording of this is going to be available on the webinars page in about 24 hours. So feel free to go download it and rewatch any parts that seemed a little fast. Alrighty, Katie, any other things here?
I think we're good. Do we have any last questions that just came in? It looks like, so insights, just to clarify, are for a lesson. They're for the 2.0 lesson. They show up for that lesson on the side. If you assign related videos, that's not the same thing as assigning the 2.0 lesson. So hopefully that clarified that piece. And if you want to learn more about swapping adaptive practice for quizzes, that customizing session we're going to do in 2 weeks is going to go into all of that detail. It's kind of a little bit more of a detailed process, but you are welcome to check out that recording right now if you wanted to do so. And if you have specific questions about what you should do based on your scenario or something where you might have set up things in both places, then we can work with you from there. So you would just kind of email us at Jumpstart or email us at support. Let's see, we got the last few questions in. We're going to wrap these ones up and kind of go from there. In terms of, if you need a certificate for this webinar, you can email us at Jumpstart and we can follow you up from there.
Yeah, and then there's a question here about recommendations for students. Are there recommendations for students? Yes. So when the student's answering adaptive practice questions, if they are struggling, they will get intervention right there in the moment. So it'll recommend things for them to do right then. So hopefully this helps. All right, well, Katie, thank you so much. And to all of you out there, if you have any more questions, please contact us at support@ck12.org. But we say thanks from Palo Alto, and Katie's in Massachusetts or New Hampshire. So from around the world, we say thank you to you.